Just to note on the agenda, there's ways to, on the screen, there's ways to participate via call-in and also Zoom. With that said, please stand for the flag salute. So can we get a roll call, commissioners present, please?
Commissioner Scavdall?
Here.
Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, there's an echo. Oh, here.
Commissioner Mulder?
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill? Commissioner West?
Present.
Commissioner Curiozzi?
Here.
Commissioner McFarland?
Here.
Are there any agenda modifications, Director?
Thank you, Chair. There are a couple of things I'd like to bring up. Item F3, the Geck-Moeller Coastal Development Permit, we're going to ask that that be continued to the meeting of June 6th. And then I would just like to, this is more informational than an agenda change. We provided you a report that was given to the Board of Supervisors on the cannabis watershed caps. And that had the recommendations of the Board of Supervisors on it. It was not intended that that would be a discussion item. That really is just for your information. If you have questions, of course, be happy to answer those. But that's not something that the Planning Commission needs to take action on. And then you will notice that there are some supplementals on the dais related to the Meserve Coastal Development Permit and also the Strombeck Zone reclassification and parcel map.
Thank you for that.
Can I just ask a question, Chair?
Yeah.
Just pertaining to that report from Planner and the report that was submitted to the board, if there is anyone wishing to comment on that, should they comment at that time? Should we take public comment, or would it just be a comment not on the agenda?
They can, I suppose, comment on it. Normally, there's not really public comment taken on a report from Planner. It's usually just information the Planning Department gives to the Planning Commission. And then if there's something about that the Commission wants to discuss, then it would normally be agendized, put as a discussion item for Commission consideration on the agenda, and it's really not scheduled like that.
Thanks.
Thank you. So we'll do public comment on non-agenda items. I'll start with those of you in person. So if there's anyone that wants to speak on non-agenda items, please come to the podium. Seeing no one making their way to the podium, I will close public comment in person and go to Zoom. Anyone who on Zoom, *9 to raise your hand. Seeing nobody raising their hand, I will close public comment on non-agenda items and move to consent calendar, where past practice has been go through item by item, ask the commission or members of the public if they want to pull something from consent. So first off, number 1, review and approval of November 30th, 2023 action summary. Anyone from the commission would like to pull that? Nope. Anyone from the public? Nope. So that'll stay on. Number 2, review and approval of January 18th, 2024 action summary. Anyone from the commission? Seeing none. Anyone from the public? Nope. So move on. Number 3, review and approval of February 15th, 2024 action summary. Is there anyone from the commission? Nope. Anyone from the public? No. Okay. So number 4, Eel River Family Farms LLC conditional use permit, and this is on consent to continue the project to June 6th. Is there anyone that wants to talk about the continuance? Anyone on the public that wants to talk about it? Nope, that'll stay on consent. So number 5, Scott Roberts conditional use permit in the Honeydew area, which that is also recommended for continuance to June 6th. Anyone want to talk about that continuance? Seeing no hands, that'll stay on. Okay. Number 6, the Cottrell, hopefully I'm enunciating that, Ranch LLC zone reclassification. This is recommended to continue to a date uncertain. Anyone would like to talk about the continuance of that? Seeing none, seeing no hands in Zoom, so that'll stay on consent. Number 7, the RPCA Solar 5 LLC conditional use permit extension. This is a 2-year extension of a already approved project. Anyone on the commission? Anyone in the public? Seeing none, that'll stay on. So number 8, the Pastori partial map subdivision and coastal development permit. Yeah. Anyone on the commission? Nope. Anyone on? Nope. Seeing nobody. Public, that'll stay on. Okay, number 9, Stromback zone reclassification and parcel map subdivision. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to pull that? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public? Seeing none, no hands on Zoom, that'll stay on. Okay, number 10, Early Farms LLC conditional use permit in the Blocksburg area. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to pull that? Seeing none. Anyone in the public? Seeing none, that'll stay on consent. Okay, number 11, Mattole Valley Farms Business Support Services LLC in the Miranda area. Anyone on the commission? Seeing none. Anyone in the public? I got 7108. So I guess that one would come off. Number 11. Okay, number 12, Big Rock Farms Inc. conditional use permit in the Blocksburg area. Is there anyone on the commission? Anyone in the public? Seeing none, that'll stay on. Number 13, I&I Ranch LLC special permit in the Phillipsville area. This is a 2-year extension. Anyone on the commission? Nope. Anyone in the public? Nope, so that'll stay on. Number 14, California Green Acres conditional use permit in the Alder Point area. Is there anyone on the commission? Nope. Anyone in the public? Seeing none. Okay, that's the last on consent, so I'd look for a motion on 1 through 14 minus 11.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would make a motion that we approve or move forward items 1 through 10 and 12 through 14 on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Just want to confirm, you moved through pretty quickly. You're certain that the public wanted to pull 11? I just want to make sure they had their timing lined up.
Okay. Can 7108, should we, are you wanting clarification?
Is there any questions?
Can we,
Yeah, I did press star 9.
for number 11?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Okay. Please vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 6-0 with 1 absence. So now we move on to new business, Reserve Coastal Development Permit and Special Permit. And just for clarification, the one project that was pulled, that'll be heard at the end here.
You ready? Okay. Good evening, my name is Rodney. I'll be presenting for the Reserve Coastal Development Permit and Special Permit, and I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Here we go. I've shared my screen. I'm not seeing it on the. Sure. All right, looks like I'm in control here. Okay, once again, I'm presenting the Meserve accessory dwelling unit, coastal development permit, and special permit in the McKinleyville area. The project is located here in the southwest portion of McKinleyville. This is the coastal development permit and a special permit for the construction of a new 764 square foot, 2-story accessory dwelling unit. The special permit is required for an accessory structure over 15 feet in height pursuant to section 313-69142 of Humboldt County Code. The project is being brought before this commission due to comments received expressing opposition to the project as proposed. Comments received speak to the 2-story ADU impacting neighbor privacy, obstructing existing views, and not conforming to the existing development in the neighborhood. The subject parcel is here, as indicated by my laser pointer. The existing residence is located here, and the approximate location of the accessory dwelling unit would be here. This is a street view. It's a little older. It's from Google Earth. This is the subject property here. The accessory dwelling unit would be located in this general vicinity with a neighboring home on this side, and you can't really see the neighboring house, but you can see the roof line there of the parcel to the south, and then what you see here is an apartment complex south of that. This is a zoom in of the site plan, which shows the accessory dwelling unit and associated deck here, with the proposed parking being located here. This shows the existing sewer lines, and it shows the existing house that's on site and the associated parking with that residence. This slide kind of exhibits what the ADU will look like from the south, east, west, and north the elevation. This is an elevation slide, sorry. So anyways, there's that slide. Staff is recommending that you find the project exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15303 of the CEQA guidelines and make all required findings for approval of the coastal development permit and special permit, and adopt the resolution approving the coastal development permit and special permit subject to the recommended conditions of approval. I'll stop my share now.
Are there any questions from the commission for staff? Go ahead.
I have a question, just a more procedural or understanding when certain criteria is requested. But I'm curious why there's no frontage sidewalk required for this particular project.
The ADU ordinance does not require frontage improvements.
So to clarify, it's specific to the ADU piece?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? Go ahead.
For the residential units in the neighborhood, is there a height limitation for those?
35 feet.
35 feet.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
This is a question to staff, kind of general. Based on public comments, do we ever have grounds to look at an item based on the concern of neighbors' privacy?
I don't think that's codified.
Yeah, the findings that you have to make are, is it detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare? So some of what you would want to weigh is, does this create an abnormal invasion of privacy, or an abnormal invasion of something that wouldn't be expected in a residential setting like this? And obviously, there is no current limitation on a 2-story house on this parcel.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, is the applicant present for a presentation, please approach the podium, and you have up to 15 minutes if needed, but you don't have to use all 15 minutes.
I'll try not to take nearly that long. Yeah, hello, commissioners. I'm David Meserve. I realized the other day I've been designing and building houses in Humboldt County for over 50 years. So this is, you know, another one, and I always try to make them fit into where they are going. I recently bought that acre there, upgraded the manufactured home. I'm renting it out, and my long-range goal is to subdivide into 2 parcels and hopefully build a house for someone on the other one. And of course, that house, as you just heard, could be up to 35 feet tall. I don't intend to go that tall, but it could be under the code. Right now, I'm going through the permitting to build the 764 square foot ADU with the 204 square foot loft. And for several reasons, we have the loft in the building. It's because, for one thing, it's the most economical way to add square footage. It also, I'm really big on passive solar and solar gain, and to have a loft is the most efficient way to do that, as well as saving money. It also increases the possible passive solar. And yes, there is a fleeting ocean view off to the west, which we would like to take advantage of. It looks out towards Ocean Drive, which has quite a few 2-story homes on it. I've built 2 2-story homes in the neighborhood, one on Montana and one on Whitmire. And of course, the most obvious tall building is that apartment complex to the south. I don't know if you have the attachment that I sent here, but so that 2-story apartment building is 22 feet from the neighbor to the south of me from her lot, and looks directly down on her. If you look at the bottom of the page, I did sight lines from standing in the loft of what I intend to build across the bamboo fence or the bamboo hedge that's there. And you basically don't see anything except 8 feet up on her southern boundary. And even if the hedge were down to 8 feet, you would only see about 5 feet into the lot at ground level. So her comments about, you know, staring at her lot are a little bit off base, I believe. You know, certainly anything I could see or anybody who lived there could see from the loft is nothing compared to what the apartment dwellers see. As far as the neighbor to the north goes, the ADU will be 140 feet away from his house. I'd originally considered building just to the west of the existing house there, because that would kind of consolidate the ADU in the house and give me more leeway in the future in building stuff. But that would be directly to the south of him and would be right in his view shed, and it didn't seem appropriate. So I moved it all the way pretty much to the east end of the property in order to not have a big impact on him. You know, there will be a window to the west in the loft, and that window's intended to watch the sunset out of, not to be prying into his yard. And the interesting thing is that from the manufactured home, 2 feet off the ground, you can, with the floor 2 feet off the ground, you can actually see over the 6-foot fence as it stands and see a good portion of his yard. So it isn't as if, I mean, I'm not sure in a residential neighborhood how much privacy one can expect. I'm not trying to invade privacy. So, you know, basically the ADU is designed to have a low impact and to fit in and complement the neighborhood and to provide affordable housing. And I ask you please to approve the exception to the 15-foot height limit and allow an overall height of 22 feet. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute. Do any commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I will now go on to public comment from members of the public. Is there anyone in the audience present? Please approach the podium and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jeremy McKenna. I live at 1670 Fisher Avenue on the north side of the proposed project. My concern with the construction of this ADU is the variance request to exceed the 15-foot height limit that code allows. This two-story home will jeopardize my privacy, impede my view, block sunlight to my fruit trees and vegetable garden. I feel these building codes and zoning laws are in place for a reason, and if you can simply get a variance or special permit so you don't have to abide by the rules, I just don't see the point. It is my understanding that the true purpose of this variance request is to allow Dave Meserve's friend to enjoy the two-story home she is asking him to build and will then purchase. This is a premeditated act to exploit the loophole in California Home Act SB 9, which allows an ADU to be subdivided from the original property after being occupied for 2 years. Dave is a developer and will profit from this sale. SB 9 claims to maintain the integrity of neighborhoods, and I respectfully ask that you deny this variance because it violates the premise of SB 9. Building ADUs to provide housing is important and right, but exploiting SB 9 for the purpose of profiteering is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public present in person that would like to speak on this project? Seeing none, I will close the in-person portion of the comments and go to Zoom. It looks like we have 2 hands up, 7420 first, star 6 to unmute.
Hello?
We can hear you. There's a little bit of echo, so if you're watching via computer, maybe turn off the background.
I'm also on Zoom. I tried to Zoom when I couldn't call. I expected to be there in person, but I thought it was later in the agenda. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm really sorry not to be there. I'm also, before I start my comments, I just want to say about the process.
I just want to, can you mute the Zoom in the background? Because if you're on the telephone, the Zoom's coming through on a little bit of a delay. We want to be able to
can you
hear
hear
you.
me better now?
Yep, way better. I'll reset your time to 3 minutes.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say about the process. One, I thought we were later in the agenda. I was all ready to run out the door, and I'm so glad I turned on the meeting. 2, I emailed in my comments on April 30th, and it did not become part of the agenda. I do not know why. I was bringing you proof to show that, as well as 15 copies, so I could provide them all to you in person since they did not come through. But I do have proof that I emailed that to the Planning Commission on the 30th. And then prior to that, I was ready to email my comments in on April 24th before the agenda was released. But Randy Arnell asked me to please wait on Wednesday morning when I spoke with him. He asked me to please wait until after the agenda was released so that it wouldn't cause more work for his staff. And so now my comments aren't there in writing, and I'm not there in person. I live at the property to the south of this project, 1656. I also own 1654. It's the equal-sized acre property. I'm opposed to the special permit to allow the height of this ADU to exceed 15 feet and permitting it as a 22-foot two-story for the following reasons. It does not conform to the height of all the other single-family residences and ADUs located on Fisher Avenue and the vast majority of residences in the general neighborhood. I don't believe that the multifamily apartment buildings that are being used as a comparison are fair. That's not a good rationale for allowing this ADU to exceed 15 feet in height, like all the other residences along the whole street. Longtime neighbors who have purchased their properties in the neighborhood with only single-story properties had the expectation to maintain privacy in their homes and yards from neighbors with two-story structures, which will look down over us and also obstruct our views. It is very difficult and costly to create privacy from a two-story building. I have personal experience with this as I have owned the 1-acre parcel north of Fisher Avenue Apartments since 2011, and I've invested a tremendous amount of time and money to create a privacy barrier for my personal residence and my rental ADU along that boundary. If this ADU is allowed to be 22 feet rather than 15 feet, it will sandwich it would sandwich my property between my single-story structure and my property between two parcels with two-story structures. Yes, there is currently a bamboo hedge along the north side of my property, which is between the two-story and my property, but it will never be tall enough to block the view from the two-story structure.
20 seconds.
And bamboo goes into flower and periodically dies. I have had that grove that I have there is over 20 years old. I've had 4 different groves that have gone into flower. When they do, the bamboo dies, and there will be no privacy there. So that using my bamboo hedge as a reason for privacy.
Please wrap it up. Time's up. So I do believe that might have been Ella Holiday that was speaking. I will just comment that there was a letter being provided to us by staff before the meeting. So I do want that person to know that we do have copies of the public comment that she spoke of, and then from my understanding, I would like staff to correct me, as the meeting starts at 6 o'clock and the agenda items can be moved around and heard at different times. And maybe my understanding is wrong of that, but the meeting does start at 6 o'clock.
I would confirm the meeting does start at 6 o'clock, and we have followed the agenda. This was not moved up any earlier on the agenda. It looked like it was far down on the agenda, but the items before it were all on the consent calendar, which are handled with one motion. One item was removed, but the way the agenda is structured is items removed from consent go to the end of the consent, or go to the end of the agenda. And so this has been following the agenda exactly as is presented.
Thank you for that confirmation. So protocol, the applicant could have up to 3 minutes for any rebuttal, and then staff would make comments, and then that's correct, right? Okay, so the applicant, if you would like to take up to 3 minutes to rebut any comments made that you heard in public comment, you're allowed 3 minutes.
Okay, well, first, in response to Ella, she seems to, I told her about the sight lines. I tried to show them to her. The sight lines, I cannot see into her yard at all. Nobody who lives there will be able to see into her yard, even if the bamboo comes down to 8 feet, or if the bamboo dies. I'm perfectly happy to cooperate with her on building another or planting whatever would be 8 feet tall, and would make sure that whoever lives in the new unit cannot see into her yard. So we're not looking down, and in no way is it obstructing her view, because I'm to the north and I'm the other side of her bamboo, and it doesn't obstruct any view at all, and certainly not any sun. And it's 150 feet away from where she actually lives. She has a second unit, at least one there, and it may be only 90 feet as shown on the plans from that, but it's 150 feet from her place. In terms of what Jeremy was saying, I really don't think that's part of this agenda. You know, what my intentions are with the property in the future. I am building it for a friend of mine. I'm not sure what the ownership is going to look like. We may very well make the parcel that this house is on one of the 2 parcels of the subdivision. In any case, we will follow the code and we will follow the law when we subdivide or when we change any ownership situation. And I don't think that's really relevant to this discussion. I'm just trying to get up 5 feet higher than allowed for the for an ADU, for a separate ADU. As I said before, an attached ADU is 25 feet, and I could have built a house twice the size of the one that was there and gone 35 feet. Not my desire. Thank you.
Thank you. Did any commissioners have any questions for the applicant? No. Okay, staff, do you have anything you would like to confirm?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that the comments, she did phone me and she did say that she was preparing something to submit. And she asked, I believe she asked if she should email it to me or to the planning clerk. It was a few days ago, but I believe that I stated that it would serve the same purpose. It could come to me, I could create a supplemental. This was after the staff report had already been uploaded to Legistar for the agenda. I explained that it could come to me and we could prepare a supplemental, or it could go through the planning clerk and would get dropped to you guys. I did notice at the last minute that on the meeting details, I didn't see it. So I printed it. I printed 9 copies and I brought it down and hand delivered it to all of you so you would have it.
So you're aware of someone with comments, you did your due diligence and brought the information forward to the commission is what I heard you say.
That's correct.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
I
Okay.
don't.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any direct questions for staff or? Okay, so deliberations, motions?
I just wanted to acknowledge that we do have the Ella Holiday letter on the dais, and I have read it, so even though she got cut off, I do believe we got to hear all of her intended comment. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about where I'm coming from on this one. I think in regards to the neighborhood concerns, I understand, I hear you, that it's hard to have a new dwelling go in, but a single family dwelling could also go in that was taller than this. And from what I've seen in the elevation designs, this house is aesthetically pleasing. I appreciate that he placed it on the eastern side of the property where it's not obstructing ocean views. So to me, it seems like it is fitting in with the neighborhood character.
Okay. Other commissioners? So someone want to make a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion that we adopt a resolution which finds the proposed project complies with McKinleyville Area Plan, zoning ordinance, finds a project exempt from CEQA, and approves the coastal development permit and special permit subject to the recommended conditions of approval attached.
I'll second the motion.
I'm gonna go with a voice vote on this, I think. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone oppose? Anyone abstain? Okay, motion carries. Let's move on to number 2, Nathaniel Ludwig special permit in the Lolita area. Turn it over to staff.
One moment while I get oriented to the workstation, please. All right, I'm attempting to share my screen now. Excellent. Chair Mulder, members of the commission, good evening. Stephen Santos presenting the Nathaniel Ludwig special permit. The project is located in the Lolita area, very close to the College of Redwoods, and takes driveway access off of Tompkins Hill Road. Here's a zoom in from GIS. The parcel is zoned agriculture general with an RA land use designation. The purpose of this special permit is to resolve violations. And the project falls into 4 general categories, and I'll walk through each of them. But one relates to revegetation along Willowbrook, a Class 1 perennial stream, blue line stream. Another portion of the project relates to a shop building that was built without permits that is being recommended to be demolished. Another portion of the project involves a reduction to the streamside management area, as well as after-the-fact approval for various developments. So most of this project surrounds the streamside management areas and the streamside management area ordinance. And I've already kind of touched upon this already a little bit, but it involves vegetation removal along Willowbrook, the realignment of a driveway, and then the shop building was constructed for an unpermitted indoor cannabis operation. And then there was grading and paving and expansion of a residential structure. This photograph taken by code enforcement represents what some of the major vegetation removal looked like along Willowbrook. Riparian vegetation and trees were removed, and other vegetation was removed, and then a series of vegetation debris piles or slash piles were generated, and one of those is viewable on the other side of that bobcat there. There is a restoration plan associated with this application. It proposes replanting of redwood trees, an erosion control mix, and some straw wattles to also control erosion, as well as a 5-year monitoring plan with success criteria. The restoration plan suggests waiting to see if there's natural regeneration of riparian species and then monitoring that, and if that's not sufficient, then proactively planting those riparian species. CDFW asked for proactive planting from the get-go, from implementation, and that's been incorporated into a condition of approval requiring the applicant to generate an addendum to the restoration plan to incorporate that restoration. Conditions of approval also include providing the county, in consultation with CDFW, a management plan for all of those slash piles. It may not be necessary to remove all of the slash piles. Some of them can remain in the SMA. Some of them are already out of the SMA. Many of them can remain as wildlife habitat, but we need some mapping to identify how many slash piles there are, where they are, and what's going to happen to each of them. At one point, under the previous applicant, previous owner, there was a proposal to burn some of the slash piles. If that ends up being proposed in the management plan, they'll of course have to designate a safe area on the property to do that. But so we have a restoration plan, but we need a supplement to address some of the additional details that came out of site inspections and consultation with CDFW. So that's the restoration component of the special permit. We also have some driveway realignment that we need to address as part of this special permit. To explain the coloring of the photo that you are looking at, and I apologize in advance, I'm not a graphic artist, not a straight drawer. The yellow and red portions represent the former alignment of the driveway. And the reason I broke that up into 2 colors is because the red area approximates where concrete was removed and then placed as fill elsewhere on the property, but unfortunately within SMAs. The blue area approximates where the new primary driveway is now. The special permit, and the staff is recommending that special permit authorize the realignment after the fact of the driveway, because that driveway follows a historic logging road that was present prior to the adoption of the streamside management area ordinance. This new alignment is much, much safer than the original. The original was straight up a slope, mapped 15 to 30% slope, not great for emergency vehicles, not great for the residents during winter time. So it's another reason staff supports the realignment. There was some streamside management area disturbance associated with the road improvement and the realignment, some tree cutting. So we do have a condition of approval requiring some additional evaluation of those disturbances by a qualified professional to see if additional mitigations or replanting would be appropriate to offset those disturbances. Now, I mentioned when we were looking at the overhead aerial that there was some concrete debris from the old driveway that was placed on the property, and it was placed in two areas. Here's one area near the shop building, which I'll discuss shortly, as fill, and then this other area just south of the second dwelling unit, just kind of stockpiled within the SMA. So there is a condition of approval requiring a qualified professional to kind of assess the location of that fill and make a recommendation whether it's okay to leave it in place, that it won't cause any long-term effect or impact to biological resources or the SMA. If not, then it'll have to be removed. The third area addressed by the special permit is the construction of the shop building that is outlined there in the photo in red. This structure was built in 2022 without permits. During a code enforcement visit in association with law enforcement, it was discovered that the shop was being used as an indoor grow. The entire structure, bottom and top floors, were being used as the indoor. And this photo shows the edge of the building relative to an adjacent SMA. This is an unnamed tributary to Willowbrook. It is perennial. It runs year-round. It's spring-fed. And it shows that the plane of the structure is actually within the riparian drip line. So if when we looked at would it be possible to do a streamside management area reduction in association with an after-the-fact building permit, we were looking at reducing that from 100 feet to 0 or less than 0 because it's within the riparian drip line. And it isn't just the structure, there's also uses associated with the structure being conducted in the curtilage of the building. You can see storage of a water tank. Can't see it on the other side, but there was a car parked there. So there were other uses associated with the structure that were also impacting the SMA. We did receive a biological assessment from a biologist, and that biologist did recommend that the building stay, but the rationale was if you demolish the structure, that will cause short-term impacts to the stream and the streamside management area. And staff didn't find that to be compelling, that it's objectively, there's objectively more impacts from allowing the building to remain on an ongoing basis than the impacts that would be associated in the short term with its removal. And CDFW concurred with this review of the biological assessment and also recommended in their comments that the building be demolished, and so there is a condition of approval to demolish the building. And finally, the fourth component of the special permit relates to grading and paving and expansion of the primary residence. So the paving and the primary residence are shown crudely within that red polygon. And then the secondary residence also had some remodeling done without permits, which is shown in yellow. Both the primary and the secondary units have gotten all of their after-the-fact building permits. So that violation in that code enforcement case has been resolved. The blue lines in this drawing, again, is a crude representation of where there are wet areas or streams that qualify under the streamside management area ordinance. So part of this what this special permit does is, with regard to the paved areas and the residences, Staff is recommending a reduction of the stream side management area anywhere, any place that it intersects with the plane of the blacktop or those structures. There's also a condition of approval requiring the production of a development plan, which will be recorded, a notice of development plan will be recorded, that will have all of the SMAs clearly drawn, including, you know, them going all the way up to the development that's already been approved. So any future landowner, that notice of development plan will come up in a title search, and they'll be able to access the development plan and see that where the development was allowed and not allowed for the future. We did receive one public comment in the last day or two from a neighbor. They were very supportive of the restoration aspects of the permit. They did suggest that the shop building could remain, but I covered that in a previous slide. We just don't have the evidence to qualify for that reduction under the criteria that's in the streamside management area ordinance. There also is, in attachment of 5, a comment from the applicant who couldn't be here today. He notified me last week that he had to take a trip to Australia. I gave him the offer to continue the meeting so he could attend. He recently, the current applicant and current owner, recently took on the application. They are not the ones who did the violation. They recently purchased the property and had the application transferred to them. He was given a copy of the staff report, the conditions of approval. I met with him via teleconference, walked him through all the conditions of approval, and in attachment 5, he acknowledges that meeting with me and agreed to all of the conditions of approval. So staff is recommending the commission find the project exempt from environmental review, make all the required findings according to Humboldt County Code, and adopt the resolution approving the Ludwig special permit subject to the conditions of approval. And I will now stop my screen share. I'm available for questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Levy?
Yes, through the chair. Actually, I was going to ask you if you could go back to look at the slide, the one that said grading and paving. Just had a question about that.
Navigating the intricacies of Zoom. Okay.
Yeah, that one. So,
Sorry about that.
No,
There
it's
we go.
okay. I do understand, of course, the blue line on the right is the one right adjacent to the shop. But the one that goes through the middle, through the paved area, what sort of a stream channel is that?
That is a great question through the chair. It's not exactly a channel. There are a series of springs that are to the north of the property. And so the further you go into the canopy, the more you'll discover a discernible channel. But once you leave the canopy, there isn't as clearly a discernible channel, and it appears to just perk into the soils. So I don't want to confuse you and suggest that the blue lines on the left represent a stream channel. Absolutely, once you get a few feet south of the yellow and the accessory dwelling unit, another channel starts, and there is a culvert, outfall there. But there is no discernible channel immediately to the north of the pavement based on my 2 visits.
Okay, thanks. That clarifies it for me. Appreciate that.
Mr. Scavino?
Question, staff, through the chair. The driveway, the old driveway where the concrete was moved and you said it's fairly steep, it also shows up on the map. I don't see anything specific requiring that area to be restored or any erosion control put in there. Will that be part of the restoration plan?
No, the remainder of the previous driveway is not covered under this special permit. There's no recommendations to do anything with that because that wasn't considered a violation of the streamside management area or the code enforcement case that this special
Okay,
permit
I guess I
addresses.
just have some concern that we have you said up to a 30% slope, a driveway going up the hill, that without some restoration or maintenance there, we're going to have erosion down the hillside in that area? Is that?
Ostensibly, but based on the review of the aerial imagery, that driveway also predates the streamside management area ordinance. Yeah, it's not something that was evaluated by staff.
I think, though, if I could offer, it would be appropriate since there was material associated with some of the other streamside management area issues that the commission could impose a condition requiring that to be hydro-seeded and erosion control installed to prevent erosion. It may have already seeded itself, but
It may have. I guess I would just like it covered in the restoration, in the site restoration plan that we've already asked to be completed. If the site restoration plan could include the driveway area. If the consultant feels that it's already naturally restored itself, I'm fine with that. It would be a shame.
It would be no problem at all to attach that to the condition of approval regarding the assessment of the concrete debris that was placed as fill, to also include in that assessment of the concrete debris to assess the rest of the driveway as well, and make appropriate recommendations.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Through the chair to staff, just a point of clarity regarding. I think I wasn't quite appreciating that. Is it true we are doing an after-the-fact permit for the primary residence itself?
The after-the-fact building permits have been issued. We are doing an after-the-fact streamside management area reduction to the edge of those structures with this special permit.
for the existing primary residence?
Correct. Because its footprint was expanded as part of the code enforcement case back in 2022 and would have required SMA compliance at that time.
Okay, thank you. And then following up with that, was that driveway permitted? The original driveway?
I don't have knowledge of whether a grading permit was issued for the original driveway at the time that it was constructed.
Any other follow-up questions? Okay, so now I'll go open up to public comment. I did hear that the applicant was out of the country, but I'll just extend the offer if for some reason the applicant was available, raise their hand. Don't see anyone. So is there anyone in person that would like to speak on this project? Seeing no one, I'm going to close public comment in person. Go to Zoom. *9. Is anyone on Zoom would like to speak on this project? Seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about this, except I just want to note that I'm never a huge fan of, after-the-fact permits, but in this case, it seemed clear from your report that all the violations were committed by the previous owner. Some were resolved to some extent, but in any case, there have been no violations at all committed since this new owner took over the property. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. The new owner has been responsive and cooperative and has really been amazing.
Yeah, great. And so it sounds like it's a good thing that he was willing to take this on, even though he was responsible for these violations. And not that I was terribly conflicted about it anyway, but I just want to also ask you, you discussed with him the reasons for requiring the removal of the shop, and he did not make any strong case that he wished otherwise?
Like any property owner, of course, he wanted to explore every possible pathway to retain the building. I walked him through the criteria in the Streamside Management Area Ordinance, as well as the salient points in the biological assessment. And though he was disappointed, he understood where the county was coming from.
Thank you.
I hear you, Commissioner Levy, about after the fact, and the way I'm seeing this, the whole project is like, yeah, you get to keep the additions you did to the 2 residences, but the building you built for illegal cultivation, that's got to come down, and now you got to do a bunch of SMA restoration work because you put concrete in the SMA. So I'm personally not seeing like a big benefit for after the fact, where I've seen in past other projects where there's a big benefit, was a big benefit for after the fact. So
Agreed.
is there any other commissioners that have questions, clarifications? Anyone want to like jump and make a motion? Go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
guess, can you elaborate on what your comment, so you're, is it after the fact specifically to the remainder of what's there, not about the removal of the shop?
The way I'm coming from is after the fact. In past, I've seen like development happen where it's like, just go do it all and then get a permit afterwards, and it's not a big deal. This is like, yeah, you went and did a bunch of development, but the building that the main part of the building that you also use for illegal cultivation has to come down. So I'm not seeing it throwing out a message to like, hey, after the fact is a good way to go. I'm kind of seeing the opposite, like make sure you get your SMAs in order before you try to develop a site. That's kind of the message I'm hearing if this project is approved as recommended with that addition Commissioner Scavdall was mentioning. Make a motion there?
Happy to make another motion. I move that we approve the project as recommended by staff, with the addition of, and I'll leave it to staff to find the right wording, but in condition 4, with the addition of evaluation of the existing driveway where the concrete was removed with respect to restoration and erosion control.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose? Anyone abstain? Motion carries. Let's get through this continuance to June 6th for number, it's at the very bottom of one of my pages. Gosh.
3.
Number 3, the Geck Moeller Coastal Development Permit. If I can get a motion to continue that to June 6th.
I'm happy to move that we continue that to June 6th.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and then I will allow public comment just on the continuance if there is anyone that wants to speak in person on that continuance. Anyone on Zoom that wants to speak on the continuance? Seeing none, voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. So it's 6:59. Let's come back at 7:10. Okay, so I call us back to order at 7:10. Now we're at item G, items pulled from consent. And that was number 11. So if we can get a staff report on that, please.
Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. Tonight we're considering Mottola Valley Farms Business Support Services LLC conditional use permit. I have a short presentation to present. Is that view what the public is seeing right now? Okay.
No.
I'm not sure. Display settings, well, there you go. Okay. Share. Okay. Okay. So Mottola Valley Farms Business Support Services LLC conditional use permit. See, how do I advance? Arrow keys. It's not working. Oh, there we go. Okay, this project is in the Miranda area. The thumbtack on the map shows the general location of the project. This shows a Google Earth image of the parcel outlined in purple with the thumbtack showing the general location of the proposed cultivation project. The parcel itself is 80 acres. It split zoned AE and TPZ. The cultivation project will occur in the agricultural exclusive portion of the parcel. The project is for 18,300 square feet of outdoor cannabis. Juvenile plants will be nurtured in 1,800 square feet of nursery space. Estimated annual irrigation of 200,000 gallons. The applicant has secured a appropriative water right for 195,511 gallons annually, governed under a water right. Rainwater catchment will provide the balance of the water. A rainwater catchment analysis indicated an ability to capture 13,000 gallons of water in a drought year with up to 42,000 gallons in a normal rain year. The project currently has 162,200 gallons of water. There'll be 210 gallons at full build out. It's a solar powered project. There's no generator proposed with the project. The project is subject to a lake and stream bed alteration agreement for the development and operation of the point of diversion, as well as stream crossings that are on the project site that will be maintained per the terms of that agreement. The project has been fallow since 2014. There is a full water bladder on the site currently, which will be retired by August 15th, 2024, to be replaced by hard tanks as a condition of approval. Two cultivation areas are, in parentheses, were encroaching on the streamside management area. The restoration is conditioned as a condition of approval. The applicant is here, and I believe the applicant has completed that restoration. The encroaching 3,600 square feet has been proposed to be relocated to an environmentally superior location, which will not be cultivated this year, but will be in subsequent years. This is the site plan. These are always hard to read in the PowerPoint format. See if I can, is there a pointer option on this? Let's see. One of these, maybe this one. Second one. Oh, sorry. Is that one? So that laser pointer, okay. So the proposed outdoor 3600 is essentially right here. That was subject to a botanical study, which has been completed. No rare or special status plants were identified in this area. That'll be full-term outdoor. And then the greenhouse cultivation will occur in these greenhouses here. And we'll just continue with the presentation. Okay, I covered the biological survey. These are the conditions of approval for the project. Permittee shall complete the items detailed in the Laker streambed alteration agreement. The permittee has taken over this property and has recently transferred the LSAA into his name, so it's now in his ownership, I guess you call it. And yeah, let's see. So tonight, the recommendation is to consider the mitigated negative declaration for the commercial medical marijuana land use ordinance and addendum prepared for the Matola Valley Farms Business Support Services LLC project. Make the findings for approval specified in section 312-17.1 of the Humboldt County Code, and recommending approval of Matola Valley Farms Business Support Services LLC conditional use permit subject to the recommended conditions of approval. And with that, I will turn it over to the commission.
Okay. All right, any commissioners have questions for staff clarifying? Okay.
Through the chair to staff, just noting that there's a barn that you say is partially within an SMA area. I just wanted to confirm that you do not see any significant concern with that barn remaining.
No, I don't see a significant concern. The agricultural exemption was secured prior to the current general plan, and at that time the setbacks were different. It's only a portion of the barn. I can pull that up I think it's in your packet if you want, but it's a portion of the barn is within what is currently our streamside management area setback. But the structure is a legal non-conforming structure for agricultural purposes, so I don't see a major concern there.
That's it. Good. So now I'll open public comment. At this time, I'll ask the applicant, you can approach the podium and you have up to 15 minutes to present. You don't have to use all of it if you don't need to.
Sure. Hello. Good evening, you guys. Wanted to basically just say this project was, as he said, fallow. It'd been sitting there for years. I believe the previous owners were laxative. I think they were using the extensive time in the LSA to kind of just extend their, abuse of kind of the privilege of that timeline. They hadn't done anything with the SMAs. All the soil and everything was still in it from when they had left it 10 years ago. They had all sorts of fans and generators, which were probably annoying the neighbors in the area, and all of that has been removed. It's all going to be solar. There's going to be no generators. All of the SMAs have been addressed and mitigated and strawed and wattled. I brought all that stuff back into compliance. we got our LSA, which the Fish and Game was basically holding as collateral to basically impede the previous owners because they were just basically abusing it, and they had been busted there way back in the beginning. And then they grew it again, and they started it up, and then they tried it, and then they got stopped in like 22 or 21. They tried to get it going again, but then bailed out because of some water issues that they couldn't complete. And basically, in 3 months, I feel I've pushed that project through to compliance, which these guys haven't been able to do in, 3 to 10 years. And we've spent all our time and energy to get it to this point, and basically I feel that we are compliant. I have another farm, and our farm is one of the few farms that actually has been fully completed to where you actually get your rezoning certification, because most people just get to the end and then there's 5 or 10 criteria they want you to do, but nobody ever sends those back in, so they don't actually get their project totally completed. I know many of that are still sitting there that people think they're done, but they're not. But so I do complete my projects, and I put all the energy I can to stay compliant. We did our water reporting for this year, which they hadn't been done for years on the property, and we have been compliant in every way possible. And I don't know what the objection was to this project. I would be curious to hear what there is, because I would be more than willing to be cooperative and try to help mitigate whatever anybody has an issue with my project. Because basically I feel, we are doing everything that you would want us to do. And we took a neglected piece that's basically a problem for the county. He had back taxes that he hadn't paid on this property for up to 4 years. So by me taking over this project and bringing it into compliance, I basically helped out the county by paying the fees and bringing all of the lackadaisical or attention that basically you want put to a project has been done. And I've pretty much cleaned up a big mess for everybody, and now it's compliant. And Fish and Game is now on board with us because they had a few criterias, but we met them before even this meeting. And so basically everything that everyone has wanted has been done prior to this meeting, which we had much more time to do it, but it's all done now. And so I'm hoping that we can get it approved.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. So is that everything?
Yeah.
Okay. After public comment, you do have the opportunity to come back and rebut for up to 3 minutes if needed. So anyone else in the room wishing to speak on this project? Okay, so I'm going to go out to Zoom. Please raise your hand, *9. Anyone on Zoom wishing to comment?
Chair, we've enabled 7108.
Okay, 7108, please.
Okay. Yes, thank you. I'm not opposed to this project. I just wanted to bring up a couple of issues. One was attachment 4D with the road evaluation and the ordinance saying category 4 or equivalent, and I see this one is rating category 2 and category 3 as equivalent, and that was the big question. And then I just wanted to draw attention to the Fish and Wildlife. They submitted a letter on April 5th, and on the second page it says the project description, site plan, and operations plan that were provided to CDFW for review are inconsistent and confusing. The site map provided appears to be inaccurate and does not meet minimum mapping standards, and they requested prior to approval that the documents be revised to accurately depict the proposed activities on site, and further request that prior to approval, that they have the opportunity to review and comment. And they went on to say, without examining a complete updated plan, it's challenging to thoroughly evaluate all potential impacts of a proposed project when projects are approved before there is a finalized project plan, site map, and operations. And I totally agree with that. And that did happen here, which I'm glad that the applicant supplied that information. But I also believe that the Planning Commission should have completed an accurate proposed plan to evaluate before considering approval. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I encourage the commissioners to read what Fish and Wildlife is saying.
30
and
seconds.
This project sounds good. This person seems like he's doing the right thing, but I just wanted to bring those 2 points forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else on Zoom wishing to speak? Seeing no hands go up, I'm going to close public comment at Zoom and bring it back to in person. Offer the applicant, if they want to rebut anything, they have up to 3 minutes.
Yeah, I would definitely like to address everything she put up. We did immediately, there was a crappy plot plan, I'll give her that. And it was an old plan that basically was just used off of the pre-existing owner stuff, and we kind of just patched it together and sent it off. It wasn't very good. And so we did have it immediately redone, and that is what currently you have up there. And it clearly showed everything. We gave that to CDFW. They approved it. They liked it. They were totally content with it. And I can't remember the other point that she had.
The road evaluation.
Road evaluation.
The road evaluation, the LSA clearly outlines that the road is up to standards. There's passable, there's turnarounds for the fire trucks. All of that is outlined in the LSA prior, so I think that should be totally addressable and verified from the previous evidence in the LSA. And the plot plan was revised. We had it done by North Point, I think, Praj, and they did it for us in just a few days. So we were able to get it done for you guys to have it here at this presentation.
Thank you. So I'll close public comment now and bring it back to the commission. I think 7108 hasn't been muted. I see it looks like they're unmuted somehow. So if we could not get rid, thank you for the background noise. I'm just going to ask a point of clarification through the chair to staff. I heard something about road evaluations, but isn't there a differentiation between a roadway and then also driveways, where in driveways I think it can reduce all the way down to category 2? If I'm not mistaken, I just wanted to get a clarification on that.
There was 2 road evaluations performed for this project. One covered from the county road interface to the property line, and then there was another evaluation done on essentially the driveway, and that was the one that called out the category 2 and 3 class road. I may defer to my co-worker here on that, but as the applicant said, the roads and the conditions of the roads were examined by CDFW and determined to be okay from their perspective.
Thank you for that.
And I have improved the road conditions even since then.
I hear you, Virgil. I just, sorry.
And one thing that I would just also add through the chair is that you are correct. Once a road is serving one parcel, it becomes a driveway.
And
at that point.
That's what I was trying to call out, is once it meets a driveway standard, you can drop down to the category 2 from my understanding. That's what I was trying to, so thank you for that clarification. Sorry to go first.
Also on the topic of roads, there is the standard condition of approval B1 that the permittee take action to form, join, or maintain membership in a road maintenance association, or pay their fair share of cost of road maintenance as well, since we're talking about roads.
Thank you. Any commissioners? Commissioner Levy?
Sure, through the chair. And thank you. That was actually, I'm glad you asked that question. That was a good clarification. I'm not terribly concerned about any impacts of this project, and I don't think that CDFW is either at this point, but I just wanted to follow up on what the caller asked, referring us to the email exchange with CDFW from a little bit under a month ago, sort of regarding the lag time about giving the applicant 180 days to submit a finalized project plan, et cetera. Is there I guess I would ask you, because I just don't see if there was a response to the email, but the two questions that were asked at the end of that were, is there a mechanism for CDFW to assess the proposed plan and offer further recommendations if necessary, meaning the final plans that come in? And secondly, is the applicant permitted to commence cannabis cultivation prior to submitting those updated and finalized plans? So again, as I say, I'm not really concerned that anybody is worried about this project, but I just thought as a process question, it would be good to ask you that.
Well, certainly we have brought projects forward with the condition to provide revised site and operations plans in other cases. In this case, the CDFW asked for a revised plan prior to commencing cultivation activities, and the applicant said, okay, I'll do that, and did that. So that was great. In terms of, do we have a set policy or procedure? It's to some degree up to the planner's discretion. Can we make a determination based on the materials submitted as to what the application is doing? With the original plan, I felt that there was enough there to bring it to hearing. However, the CDFW comment obviously indicated that they wanted more, and that's, we're responsive to that and did that.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions from commission? Anybody want to make a motion? Commissioner West?
I'll move staff recommendation that we approve this project.
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Levy was second. Being as I didn't hear a lot of concerns, I'm going to go with a voice vote. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No abstentions. Motion carries. So Toll Valley Farms Business Support Services is approved per the conditions of approval. And now we will move on to the last thing. Report from planner.
Yep, thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate it. A lot of work. What's going into that? Have a good evening.
And just for clarification, through the chair to county council, is this an agenda item that we'd open up and take public comment on report from planner?
As it's agendized, we should be opening public comment to discuss whether you do that now in the beginning or wait to have some sort of presentation so people know what to discuss about.
Okay. But I just want to make one clarification, because from what I remember is the reports are informational and not discussion items. But if I need to
I think in light of what the county council said, we're going to let it go.
Okay. Well, sounds good. So would you like to speak on your report and take public comment? Would you like me to take public comment and then speak on your report?
I'll just go ahead and give a quick summary of this.
Okay.
This,
Oh, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
Ex parte, as a member of the public, I'm allowed to speak. I did speak on this item when the Board of Supervisors was here, or heard it, so just throwing that out there.
So this is a report that actually within the resolution 1843 that establishes the countywide cap and also the watershed caps. It also establishes limitations on development within the impacted and refuge watersheds. There is a provision in there that calls for an annual report. And that annual report has really not been given. Partly because there hasn't been the information that's been collected that was anticipated at the time that that resolution was prepared. When that resolution was prepared, it was anticipated that the Regional Water Quality Control Board, Department of Fish and Wildlife would be collecting stream flow information, water quality information, and that would begin to establish a data set that could be monitored to demonstrate the effectiveness of the regulatory environment that's been established in Humboldt County and also elsewhere in the state. That never did really materialize. So we did not submit a report, and it was pointed out during the discussions on Measure A that an annual report was required, and we looked at the resolution, and that is absolutely required, and so we started this year by providing a report of what's happened to date. So what the report goes through is gives the background on the cap that was established, and it's important to recognize that the cap was not established as a mitigation measure for the EIR. It was not established in association with the EIR. It's something that was entirely separate. It was a separate discussion from the EIR. But it did establish a cap of 3,500 permits on 1,205 acres. That was distributed amongst 12 watersheds within Humboldt County. Those watersheds were assigned a number of permits and acreage based upon the areas that were available within each of those watersheds to support cannabis. Obviously, the watersheds that have a high percentage of federal land or state park or something like that are not going to get a high number of permits because that area is not eligible for cannabis cultivation, and the same is true of areas that are really zoned TPZ. So the report goes through and identifies the status of the cap, and the first table 1 that's in the report identifies that there have been a total of 2,125 cultivation permits and 309 total cannabis permits submitted to date, and that 1,068 cultivation permits have been approved. 657 cultivation permits have been denied or withdrawn to this point, and that there are still 400 permits that are pending. Moving to Table 2, it identifies the approved cultivation permits by watershed and where we are with respect to the watersheds, and none of the watersheds exceeded, the highest watershed was Lower Trinity River, which was at 44% of the number of permits and 58% of the number of acres. And then moving through rather rapidly, you can read this, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have them. Identifying the number of permits and applications still pending by watershed. And again, giving a percentage total. Some of the watersheds are a little higher than others. Again, Lower Trinity River is the highest. We then provided a table that included the sub-watersheds that are restricted, that don't allow new cultivation. And the number, I'm sorry, the next table actually shows the number of enforcement actions that have been taken, and the number of total enforcement actions are 1,213. Of those, 99 are still in compliance agreements, and 887 have been fully abated. When you add together the number of applications that are denied and withdrawn, that gets up above, and we identified that it'd be about 1,400 permits of sites that are no longer cultivating, that were cultivating at the time the first ordinance was adopted. So what we're seeing here is an overall reduction in the amount of cultivation that has been going on in the county. One of the things that's not in the report, the report uses a very conservative figure of 35% of being new cultivation. The actual percentage of applications for new cultivation, meaning that parcel didn't have cultivation on it before, is about 20%. So about 80% of all applications are for pre-existing cultivation. We then went in and provided the information by sub-watershed. These are the protected watersheds that are either impacted or refuge watersheds. And then identified that we are in a process right now where we are notifying people that have either not entered into an agreement to pay their fair share of, or their responsibility for paying taxes, or they have not paid the money that's owed to the Planning and Building Department for processing their applications. And there's a total of 538 applications and permits that are currently being reviewed. And the permits that have actually been issued have been sent letters already this week suspending the permits. So those permits are being suspended. We're sending out another batch of letters tomorrow. The response to those, frankly, have been overwhelming to staff. There's a lot of people coming in and wanting to have their permit put back into an active status, and wanting to pay the cost of processing their permit and enter into an agreement to pay their taxes. So it's been a painful process, but it is eliciting a response. We then made some kind of overall conclusions relative to, what's the impact on the overall water use, and relative to the caps, and then what's likely to happen with abandoned and discontinued cultivation sites. And one of the things that has been a concern for some time, particularly with what's going on now with permit holders and applicants who have not been able to pay their permit costs or pay their taxes, whether or not we're going to end up with a lot of abated sites. We have been looking at various options other than the county doing abatements. And one of the things that we're working with right now are receivers that will take and manage the property, get the property cleaned up, but then that results in the property being sold. The beauty of that is the county doesn't become a property owner, and it allows the properties to be cleaned up, sold to somebody who wants to maintain them. And the county does, as part of that, recoup the costs of that work. We identified that there were some potential areas that had been discussed in terms of modifying the ordinance to address the cap and to address noticing of projects, and but there was really not a need to completely redo the ordinance or pursue a proverbial 3.0. And the board received the permit, received a lot of public testimony on this, and chose to not do anything at this point, wanting to see what's going to happen with the applicants and the permit holders that owe money, and have entered into agreements or not entered into agreements, and to really come back next April with a more thorough report and see what the state of the industry is before making a decision on what should be done. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or you can take public comment.
Are there any brief clarifying questions before we go to public comment? Okay. I just have one, Director. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, that the ordinance being amended to give the county ability to suspend permits is possibly financially helping the county. Bringing people into paying their bills is what I'm hearing. It was a good tool.
Yes.
Yeah. It's good to hear when ordinance, for my opinion, it's good to hear when ordinances are amended for constructive to help the county recoup financial losses that taxpayers have contributed to. So with that, I will go to public comment. Anyone in the room wishing to speak? Okay, I'll go to Zoom. Please raise your hand, *9. Am I seeing no one's raising their hand in Zoom? Okay. I am going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner West.
Really briefly, I just wanted to acknowledge that we got a couple of public comments sent to us via email. So just for folks who may be watching later and are curious, we did get Mark Thurman's letter, and I believe Miller was the last name also tied to it. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we did get public comment and we read it, even if it wasn't in the original packet that was published.
Thank you for pointing that out. Commissioner?
Through the chair to staff, regarding specifically the public comment that was received, I think they're referring to themselves as the Ad Hoc Watershed Adaptive Management Group. I think they've brought up how I interpret it as comments regarding, or they use the term carrying capacity for watersheds, and I recognize that there isn't any kind of definition of this, but has staff thought about, or was there discussion at the board meeting around approaching different ways of assessing the cap other than just using area that's potentially developed?
So I think one of the confusions here is the cap was not intended to address the carrying capacity issue, and people want to say that there was no effort to assess that, and that's not correct. And as I tried to point out in the presentation to the board, is that the EIR did identify that there was a watershed analysis, and that the impact was found to be less than significant, and that one of the critical things that needs to be taken into consideration with this is the fact that most of the cultivation is pre-existing. So in CEQA parlance, that means that it's baseline. Whether it was legal or not doesn't matter. The fact is that it existed at the time that the ordinances were adopted. So 80% of what we have approved to date, and the number of applications that we have, was pre-existing. That means if you've got 1,000 applications, that means there's 200 that are basically for new. And the 200 probably get most of the press, in all honesty. And so the number of increase, the amount of increase is very small. But it was evaluated, the EIR did identify that.
Yeah, thank you. And I do actually now recall replaying that statement on the Board of Supervisors meeting, and I appreciate you repeating it for a third time.
Sure.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad you asked that question, and I'm glad the director made that comment here. And what you could have added but didn't is that of those pre-existing cannabis cultivators, while some number of them were in fact mitigating their water use, storing water and so forth, some were not. A good number were not. And so, you know, the net effect on watersheds of even the pre-existing ones was vastly reduced, I believe, by the ordinance and by efforts to bring everyone into compliance with it. Anyway, I just wanted to comment that I really appreciate this report being done. You know, we heard a lot, particularly in the run-up to the last Measure A election, that, you know, that this measure was not being complied with, and some people went so far as to say that we had no idea where we were with respect to these caps. That's pretty silly, because obviously every cannabis staff report that we've received has specifically said where we were with respect to acreage and number of permits in that sub-watershed. But nevertheless, this report puts a lot more data than that together, and it's really helpful to sort of see what it shows with the data that you have. I guess the last thing I just wanted to mention or suggest, I do take your point that the public trust agencies have not provided any usable data with regard to stream flow monitoring or water quality monitoring, and that's unfortunate. I hope you will, you know, continue to ask them for it. But the other thing I just wanted to suggest is, you know, you mentioned at the end of this report about cooperation with NGOs on cannabis site cleanup. I, from my own professional work, know that there is, although it's very sort of sporadic where it's happening, but there is in fact stream flow monitoring that has been going on for a good number of years, dating back to before the ordinance, by a number of NGOs in the county. And I just, you know, the one, Sanctuary Forest is one, San Juan and Restoration Federation is another, Trout Unlimited is a third, and Cal Trout, I believe, is a fourth. And I just wanted to mention that if you haven't reached out to them to see if there's any data they might be able to provide, that might be a good supplemental source.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none. Thank you for that report. The tables are really nice and I really appreciate it, and I think it was good. We'll move along to Planning Commission discussion items. Does anybody have anything? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. Only that there was an email sent to us about scheduling an additional session in June. And so I thought we should have a discussion about that. And maybe the director was going to.
Thank you. We are looking at trying to get the tiny home village back in front of the commission as a time-sensitive item. And one of the things that happened is we have Juneteenth as a holiday, and then June 20th is the normal second meeting for the commission. A couple of us, including myself, identified that, okay, we're not going to have a meeting on that day because of the holiday, and took the week off. And so we were trying to schedule around that. We were looking at the 13th, which has another critical person out of the office, and then maybe looking back as late as the 27th, which would not be a back-to-back meeting with the first meeting in July, because the first meeting in July would normally be on July 4th. And so we want to kind of test the commission's tolerance for scheduling a special meeting on the 27th. What we may do, though, is just go ahead and put the tiny home discussion on June 6th. We do currently have 21 items that are identified for that meeting. I'm not sure that they're all going to be ready to go, but that's what's in our queue right
now. For me, my background, school, I would really be hesitant to pick that June 13th date because there's graduations, promotions that kind of happen along that timeline. So I just wouldn't want to support that. That June 27th, I could support somehow, put it in my calendar. I'll probably be working 14 plus hour days then, but I'll figure it out.
The 27th works for me, and just to reiterate, make sure I understood, we're canceling the meeting on the 20th, correct?
That is correct.
Sure, yeah, thanks. I actually was not clear that, got it, that the 20th is canceled. There will be a meeting on June 6th. Yes.
Yes, there
And then-
absolutely will be.
And I believe I could attend on the 27th if it's warranted.
Yeah, likewise, I can attend the 27th. I'm fine with that.
I'm not available the 13th either, but I can make the 27th.
27th is fine.
Go ahead.
One other, if we're settling on the 27th and we do want the tiny home village to be time sensitive, could we push some of the June 6th to the 27th and bring tiny home to the 6th?
Ooh.
Well, we potentially could. The special meeting would be for the long-range planning work, which would include the tiny home village. But we could perhaps, and the time-sensitive part is that we need to finish it. I didn't really want to put this pressure on the planning commission, but we've got a grant for it. We've got to finish the work by September. And so the closer we get to that date, the more nervous I get about being able to get it done. That's not your issue. We need to do our work and make sure that it's something that the planning commission feels good about. So.
Go ahead.
I appreciate you bringing up the opportunity for a special meeting. I personally would always take a special meeting over trying to cram everything into one meeting and not being able to give everything its due diligence.
I would agree with that, especially when it comes into long-range planning. Like, for me, you start getting that brain fog. If it's a project with a similar type you've been talking about all night long, it's a little bit easier to get through it, whereas like long-range planning, sometimes it's thinking of commutes. So are we agreed upon the 27th then? Just one clarification. Is that by September the commission has to be done with it, or the commission and the board of supervisors have to be done with it?
Commission and the board of supervisors.
I understand now. So under discussion items, anything else? Okay, a meeting is adjourned at 7:59 then.